You can find this podcast and others at Gun Rights Radio Network, gunrightsradio.com. Podcasting freedom.
Hello and welcome to episode 54 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of WaltInPA.com. I am Walt White, and this episode is late, of course. I've been really busy the last couple of weeks, actually the last couple of months, and I want to talk a little bit about it. It's not firearms related, but I think there's a little bit of crossover there. And it all starts off way back in November of last year. During a podcast around that time, I talked about taking the Pennsylvania Hunter's Safety Course. I wanted to get into hunting, and in the state of Pennsylvania, after a certain year, it was required that all new licenses be followed up by, or you couldn't obtain a license without first taking a Hunter's Safety Course, unless you have had a license prior. So I fell into that category of, if I want to go hunting, I have to take the Hunter Safety Course. It's free. It's offered by the Pennsylvania Game Commission. It's really not that difficult to find one. The time of year that I took mine was kind of difficult. I wound up driving an hour away. But I took the course, and it was pretty educational. I was in a room of about 75 teenagers, so that was kind of interesting. But it was, I don't know, it was kind of a refresher on firearm safety. It was a course on hunting safety. However, a lot of it revolved around the use of firearms in a hunting situation. You know, how to transport firearms, how to move firearms, how to cross obstacles with a firearm. You know, various things. It was all a nice refresher, and I came away feeling as though I learned something from that course. I didn't get into hunting right away. You know, just like competitive shooting, I started asking around, trying to find someone that would be interested in helping me along the way, trying to find someone that had experience, that was willing to take, you know, a new person out, teach them, and I kept coming up short. Everyone that I talked to either hunted very sporadically, they didn't hunt at all anymore, or they hunted private land and they couldn't get me on to private land to hunt with them, and they weren't going back to public land. So I was in this weird sort of state of limbo, and I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, looking for someone to help me along. And finally, you know, hunting season ended and summer began. So here we are, hunting season is just about upon us again, and I decided in the last couple of months that I was going to get started in hunting regardless of whether or not I had anyone to help me or not. It was just like competitive shooting. I got sick of asking around, and I was just going to go do it. And that's pretty much where I'm at right now with hunting. I've been spending a lot of time scouting around the woods looking for a potential hunting spot. I decided I want to get into archery hunting. I grew up around archery. I used to love the sport as a kid, and I thought it was about time I got into that as well. Hunting would allow me to do two things. One, it would be able to get me into hunting itself, and two, archery would kind of be a byproduct of that. So I went out, I purchased a bow. I've been spending a lot of time trying to practice with it, get proficient with it. And that's kind of where all of my time has been spent, researching hunting, you know, trying to educate myself on everything that goes along with it, researching products and spending my very limited budget as wisely as possible. And, you know, every free moment I'm trying to sort of get little things taken care of so that when hunting season rolls around, I can get involved. Actually, hunting season started Saturday. Early doe season started in my area. However, I was so focused on getting all of the other things taken care of that I kept putting off the really simple thing, which was just driving over to Walmart and buying a license. So I wound up buying a license kind of late, and I sent my doe tags in kind of late, or I sent my doe tag applications in kind of late, and what do you know, they didn't arrive in time for the season opener. So I'm kind of sitting around waiting for those to arrive, still researching things. I still need to go out and buy a tree stand. I'm trying to find one used to save a bit of money. But, you know, that's kind of where all of my free time has gone as of late. You know, it sucks that it pushes the podcast off. It really hurt when I shot USPSA last weekend. You know, with the family vacation and everything else that's been going on, the last USPSA match that I shot was about a month ago, and I hadn't picked up a gun since then. It made shooting on Saturday really, really difficult. If anyone ever tells you that shooting is like riding a bike and you can pick up a gun after a long period of time, even a month, and still be just as proficient as when you set it down, they are lying to you. There's definitely a depreciation of skill, and I saw it on Saturday. I mean, it's been a month, and even a month of not handling a gun, not dry firing, not live fire, nothing, it hurt a lot. You know, I pressed the gun out, it was sloppy, the sights weren't lined up. It took an extra second to get everything situated. You know, when I did start shooting, it felt awkward. Like, you know, I didn't have that same solid grip and press out that I was accustomed to having a month ago. Things were just a little off. And things being a little off just cascaded and made everything so much worse. I don't know how I did. The scores haven't been released. I don't imagine I did very well. But it was a step in the right direction, and it was an eye-opener that, you know, you need to practice with your firearms as frequently as possible. You know, it's not saying that you have to get out there every day and shoot, but you know, you should be getting out there at least once a month. If you're carrying and you want to stay proficient, get out. Try to get out once a month. Put 100, 200, 300 rounds, even more if you can, down range. Keep yourself, you know, knock that rust off. And rust, there's something I want to talk about later. You know, keep that, you know, knock the rust off and stay proficient. Before we get rolling with the news, I want to give you that typical reminder of the contest that I'm running on my blog, which is waltinpa.com. I'm giving away a signed copy of Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting in Competition, written by Julie Golub, signed by Julie Golub. So every once in a while I get asked if I'll be signing the book. I will not be signing. I don't know why you would want my signature anyway, or my autograph anyway, but I'll be giving away a signed copy of Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting in Competition, and entering is very simple. Head over to waltinpa.com. Up top there's a big image scroller. The first image you'll see is a group of guys shooting USPSA. Give that a couple of seconds, it will slide out of the way. A new picture will slide over. That second picture is a picture of Julie's book. Click on the picture, it will take you to the contest page with all of the details on how to enter. Get yourself entered, and I'll randomly select a winner for a free copy. This last month I asked that contestants, or, you know, I guess contestants is the right word. I asked people interested in entering to actually hit the range and do some shooting. I made up a bullseye target. All you needed to do was put 3 rounds in the bullseye. Simple as that. The bullseye was fairly large. I think it was about 3 inches in diameter. You were shooting from 10 yards. I wanted to make it fairly easy for everyone to enter. I knew that there was going to be a dramatic drop-off in entries. In the past, I've done lots and lots and lots of contests with Stogie Review, and as soon as you go from something super simple like make a comment to requiring activity and having someone get out and do something, there's just an exponential drop in entries, which sucks. But the entries that you do get are I think they're more quality entries, and you know, I really appreciate that. So this week, or this month, I'm taking it a step further, and I'm actually making it a little more difficult. So I might be lucky if I get 1 entry. That's all the better for you if you're interested in doing this. But instead of a bullseye target, this week I did a happy face of dots. Basically, you've got 2 3-inch dots for eyes. I think I did a 2-inch dot for the nose, and then there are, I don't remember, it's 4 or 5 inch and a half diameter dots that make up the happy face. They may even be 1 inch. I don't remember. At any rate, I'm bringing it in a little bit. You're shooting from 7 yards this time, And instead of shooting until you get all of your rounds on target, this time all of your rounds have to be where they need to be. So if you miss, you got to start over. So I would suggest printing off a couple targets. So again, it's going to increase difficulty. However, I think it's fun. You'll be able to turn the sheet over and see, the happy face that you just shot through the targets. I think it's kind of cool. So head over to waltnpa.com, click on the image for Shoot Your Guide to Shooting in Competition. All the details will be there. The link to download the target will be there. Print off a couple, take them to the range, and have fun with it. Usually when I do this podcast, there's one contest announcement that I want to talk about. Actually, I have two more for you. And it actually comes along with a plead for your help. A couple of days ago, actually I think it was about a week ago, I woke up one morning at the usual time, about 4:30. I grabbed my phone from beside the bed, and as I'm waking up, I'm scrolling through different things that I've received, Twitter, Facebook, email, all that stuff. And I happened to come across a Facebook post from Melissa over at Custom Gun Finishes. She had issued a challenge to me, and not only did she issue a challenge, but she assumed that I accepted and started running with it, which is fine. I really don't mind. But she issued a challenge. It was a race to see who can get 250 likes on Facebook first, Walt in PA or Custom Gun Finishes. And there was a wager attached to it. The winner received a free box of ammunition courtesy of the loser. Now, generally I would think, okay, this is kind of fun. It's no big deal. We both win. We both see an increase in likes. But here's the thing. I shoot 9mm. It's about $12 a box. So if I win, Melissa spends $12 to buy me a box of... Missy spends $12 to buy me a box of 9mm. No big deal, right? Well, I know that her husband has a big fondness for Magnum cartridges, and I know he shoots 50 BMG. So the biggest fear I have right now is losing and having to buy a box of 50 BMG. I know that Smith & Wesson 500 rounds are like $4 a round, and 50 BMG is a hell of a lot bigger. I have no idea what they cost, but I really don't want to have to buy a box. So please head over to facebook.com/WaltNPA and give me a like. Tell your friends to give me a like, because I really don't want to have to buy a box of this stuff. I have no idea what it costs. I don't want to know. I don't want to lose. So help me out and get me to 250 likes. In addition, when I reach 250 likes, Alan from My Gun Database will be giving away a free license. So in addition to helping me out so that I don't lose and have to buy this box of 50 BMG, someone will also be randomly selected to win a free license for My Gun Database. I've talked about it in the past. It's fantastic software, really, really good stuff. Just you download the software, you install it on your computer, incorporate the license key that you will receive if you're randomly selected, and it opens the software wide up. You can track your firearms, accessories, ammunition, shooting, cleaning logs, things like that. It does a really good job of keeping everything in one place. It's very secure, and it also doubles as a digital bound book for any FFL holders or CNR holders. So all in all, really good software. Help me out, and in doing so, when I get those 250 likes, you could possibly win a free license for My Gun Database. The first item up in the news this week is an article I came across on guns.com. It is entitled, California High School District Orders Ammo Store to Remove Sign on Stadium Scoreboard. There's also a video attached with this, but we'll get into that later. The story comes from S.H. Blainberry, and it was published on September 4th, 2012. Goes on to say, the properties of Ammo Depot in Rancho Cordova, California are paying sponsors of a local high school football team. As such, the school proudly displayed an Ammo Depot sign on the team's stadium billboard. That was until district administrators stepped in a few weeks ago and told the school that the sign had to be removed or concealed. District officials did not elaborate much on why they decided to breach the contract the Ponderosa High School Booster Committee made with the ammo supply store, except to say that it was inappropriate. When the school district saw the sign and recognized that it was not an appropriate advertisement in a public school setting, we asked the school to take that down. Eldorado Union High School District Associate Superintendent Baldev Johal told the Sacramento Bee. The two brothers who run the store, Aaron and Brandon Lundgren, were shocked by the district's decision, particularly because they both had attended Ponderosa High School. We were born and raised in this area, and it's very near and dear to us, Brandon Lundgren told the Bee. He added that the store has supported football programs in the past at other schools, all without issue. Left with few options, the Lundgren brothers decided to lawyer up and pursue a breach of contract lawsuit against the district. Attorney Kevin Marchese, who was representing Ammunition Depot, or Ammo Depot, certainly believes the brothers have a case. Any time that someone pays for advertising and the party that is paid the money obliterates or defaces the advertising, I think that's problematic, and the kind of conduct invites legal recourse, Marchese told the Bee. Currently, the brothers are engaged in negotiations with administrators in the hope that an amendable resolution can be reached. According to the press release, they've offered to revise the design of the sign to focus on Ammo Depot's personal protection and firearms training courses, which promote individuals learning how to protect themselves and their families, resulting in safer community. Additionally, Aaron Lundgren described how shooting sports are embedded into the local culture, pointing out that several high schools have skeet and trap teams, and that an advertisement for an ammo store should not be viewed in such a biased manner. This is a good, wholesome recreational activity. It's a legitimate sport. It is embraced by the international community. Our school administrators shouldn't be so narrow-minded, he told the Bee. We just want them to put the sign back up and acknowledge the mistake was made, he added. You can and should, if you have a free moment, voice your opinion on Ammo Depot's right to advertise by contact the following individuals, yada yada yada. Press releases down below that. So, kind of surprising, but not surprising. The surprising part is that a California high school accepted an ammunition store's advertisement on their stadium scoreboard. The not so surprising part was that the California School District removed it or defaced it because it was evil. If you watch the video that goes along with this, it's basically just a news report. You've got the anchor sitting there talking about what's going on. They're showing footage of this. They're, talking to the people in the community. And toward the end, he describes the sign as blood red with random bullet holes in it. Basically, it's a red sign with, artistic bullet holes in it, and it says Ammunition Depot or Ammo Depot, and then below it's got the website address, it looks like. But suddenly that sign is blood red with random bullet holes in it. Go figure. So, what do you do in this case? I completely agree with the store owners. It's a breach of contract. If the school had an issue with it, they should have never accepted their money. You can't accept someone's money, display an ad for a short period of time, and then deface it because suddenly it's inappropriate. Ammunition is not inappropriate as far as I'm concerned. School districts see it differently. There was a story a ways back that I talked about in one of the episodes where a kid got in-school suspension or something for eating a slice of pizza into the shape of a gun and then sort of waving this floppy, doughy, saucy, cheesy thing around. It was it was in the shape of a gun, so he got in-school suspension. It's just absurd, the things that go on in schools these days, and I'm really not surprised that the advertisement was pulled. The really surprising part of this whole thing was that it was accepted in the first place. It's sad to see something like this happen. I don't know. It makes me dread the future when my daughter starts going to school because she'll have to deal with this sort of thing, and as a parent, I'll potentially have to deal with this sort of thing. So it's terrible, but I don't know. I guess I can see where this mess would all come from. I just wish the school hadn't have accepted the advertisement in the first place if they were only going to remove it later. The second and final piece of news this week is pretty short and sweet. However, it has the potential to open up a can of worms as far as my thoughts on this go. So I wanted to talk about it a little bit anyway. This comes from the citizensvoice.com, It is entitled Police. Club security took man's gun, demanded $500 to return it. It was published on September 11th, 2012. And as I said, it's really short. Scranton. City police are investigating a report that security at a North Scranton after-hours club took a city man's gun, then forced him to pay $500 to get it back early Sunday. Acting Scranton Police Captain Glenn Thomas said George Ramos II, 22, of North Scranton, was involved in a fight at the Zone Club, and security took his gun while he was leaving. Mr. Ramos, who is licensed to carry the weapon, got it back, but only after security at the club forced him to hand over $500, Captain Thomas said. Captain Thomas said city detectives are investigating the incident. So there's a couple of things at play here. For one, never, ever, 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 ever give your gun to security. In this case, security is not the police. They are private security. They have no right to take your gun. If you're legally permitted to carry your gun into a place, and the rental security says that you need to hand over your gun, don't do it. Turn around and leave if you have to. If you get into a fight and you're leaving and they demand it anyway, don't hand it over. Force them to call the police. If you're afraid that you're going to get in trouble if they call the police because you just got into a fight, well, which do you want to do? Do you want to give up your gun and potentially get yourself in a whole lot of trouble if that gun gets lost or stolen? It's now out of your control. You're handing it over to someone you don't know. Are they licensed? Are they prohibited? They're nightclub security. You do not give them your gun. The fact that when he went back to get it, they were extorting $500 from him is absurd. And if he got it's either get the police involved at the time or potentially afterwards. In this case, it was definitely afterwards. So where does the whole can of worms thing come in at? Well, should or shouldn't people carry guns into establishments where alcoholic beverages are served, or if you're going to be drinking? There is one mindset that says that no, you should absolutely never take your gun anywhere where you're going to be drinking or there is drinking involved. Some people get really upset about the idea of taking a gun into an establishment that sells alcohol. So, for instance, if you decide that you and your wife are going to go out to eat at someplace like Applebee's, where they serve food but they also have a bar and they serve drinks to your table, that's a big no-no, because drinks are served and your judgment could be clouded by alcohol. And people get really upset about that. Then there's the other side of the fence, where I am, which doesn't really care one way or the other as long as you're responsible. If you're going to get hammered and you're going to be staggering home, I would suggest leaving the gun at home. At that point, your judgment is most definitely clouded, and things could get really bad. You're also not completely aware of your surroundings, so it's not very difficult to take something from you. You may put up a big fight, but it's going to be this uncoordinated drunken mess. So, think ahead of time. If you're going to get smashed, leave the gun at home. If not, I realize that sometimes you have a couple more drinks than you intend to, and things get ugly fast. But you need to use your best judgment before you leave. If you think you may have too much to drink, leave the gun at home. I have no problems with guns being in bars. I take mine pretty much everywhere I go if I'm legally permitted to. So if I'm going out to dinner with friends or family, I generally have a gun on me. I rarely drink these days. It has less to do with the fact that I'm carrying a gun and a lot more to do with the fact that I'm a father, and in the back of my mind there's always this fear that I'm going to need to drop everything that I'm doing and run to my daughter's aid if something comes up, and I don't want to be impaired when that happens. So more often than not, if we go out to eat, I'm getting an iced tea, and usually I rarely drink these days. So the whole can of worms things is, should alcohol and guns be in the same place at the same time? I really don't see a problem with it. Some people have major concerns with it. Personally, I don't. As long as you're responsible, everything will be fine, and everything works out. There is nothing that says that a drunk person or someone that's had too much to drink is not entitled the same protections as someone that is completely sober in the event that they need to defend themselves. There was a story in Jersey, was a year ago or something, where Guy had too much to drink, kind of stumbles out of the bar, minding his own business, stumbling his way on home, and he's confronted by like 3 guys that were in the bar as well, and they picked a fight with him. He winds up shooting one of them, I think, multiple times to defend himself. The guy's on top of him, trying to strangle him or something as he's shooting him more. So, if he had not carried his gun into the establishment later on that evening, he could have died when this other guy started attacking him. So, I don't think that alcohol relinquishes your rights to to defending yourself. It's kind of a sticky situation, but it's the way I feel about it. If you feel differently, have at it in the comment section. The featured content this week is going to be a little bit different. Rather than having specific posts or articles or podcast episodes that I want you to look at, instead I have really broad selections this time around, both of which are somewhat new to me. The first is pa2a.org. It's the Pennsylvania Firearm Owners Association forum, and it's been a tremendous resource for Second Amendment information in Pennsylvania. If you've got a question on where you can and can't carry a gun, PAFOA is a really good resource for finding out where and where not and why. In addition, they also keep you up to date on any political issues that are going on in Pennsylvania that revolve around guns. It's a rather large discussion forum, and it's just got a wealth of information within it. Over the last couple of years, mostly the last couple of months, I've been tapering off how often I visit, a little bit less. Finally, these days I don't really go there too much. There's a lot of bickering and fighting, and just it's not as fun as it used to be. But it's a good solid forum. It's just not as fun as it used to be. And suddenly there was almost kind of a spin-off of that forum in pa2a.org. It's a Pennsylvania Second Amendment forum, just like PAFOA, only it's new and fresh, and suddenly it's fun. It's not nearly as active, but it's fun. So I started checking it out, and there's a lot of familiar faces from one forum that crossed over to the other, and so far they're doing a really good job of building it up. They have the all-important Tapatalk plugin installed, so I can view the forum from my phone and interact from my phone, and I don't have to resize and scroll and do all kinds of funky things in the little mobile browser on my phone. I just love that Tapatalk plugin, and the fact that they're using it is a godsend. But they've got plenty of discussion forums available for you to dive into. The topics are flowing. Every couple of hours I'll check it, just for fun, and the unread post count will keep going up and up and up. So for instance, the last time I checked it was last night, I believe, around 8 or 9 o'clock. As of 6 a.m. this morning, there's 498 new topics, for my reading pleasure. So the forum is growing. There's also a Facebook presence as well. All of that's incorporated into the forum. You can click through and like and join whatever groups you'd like. But if you're in Pennsylvania and you're looking for a Pennsylvania-centric Second Amendment forum, head on over to pa2a.org. The second piece of featured content is a blog entitled Beauty Behind the Blast. It's relatively new. The URL is blastingbeauty.com, and it is run by Annette Evans. The little about me blurb goes on to say, I spend my weekends making things go boom. Pistols are my first love, but I spend plenty of time with rifles, and I'm making cautious friends with my shotgun. I compete in IDPA, USPSA, and practical rifle, and have trained in both defensive tactical disciplines and competitive shooting. Along with acting as co-match director for my home club's IDPA program, I teach with a special focus on women's shooting and defensive needs. My purple competition gear is almost as well known as my women's holster collection. So, how did I come to find this blog? Well, I shoot with Annette. I don't shoot with Annette nearly as much as I'd like. Her and her husband Mark shoot together at the monthly USPSA match at Lower Providence Rod and Gun Club. They only shoot one USPSA match a month. I think they shoot the one IDPA match per month, in addition to the match that they run at New Holland in Gap, Pennsylvania. And I think like the fourth weekend of the month they do rifle shooting, so they get around fairly frequently. And I don't do a whole lot of IDPA shooting. So once a month I get together with them at Lower Providence Rod and Gun Club, and I do my best to make sure that I'm squatted with them. They're a lot of fun, and you can learn a lot from them. They're both very laid back and just kind of fun to be around. And being friends on Facebook with both Mark and Annette, I saw that Annette started up this blog focused on women shooting, women's competition, sort of from a by a woman for a woman kind of a perspective, although the information is generalized enough that it applies to men as well. It's not something that can only be appreciated by a woman. It's it's good, well-rounded, well-written content, and I've been reading it ever since it started. There's not a whole lot of content here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blog posts since it started, and everything is well written, it's informative, and it's kind of fun to read. So if you're interested in checking out Annette's blog, head over to blastingbeauty.com, start reading, and hit up the comment section. I believe she's also on Facebook, which I'll try to include a link for that as well. She has a Beauty Behind the Blast Facebook page for updates and general discussion. Welcome to one of my favorite portions of the podcast, and that is the cigar and drink pairing. It allows me to combine two of my beloved hobbies, firearms and cigars, into one little condensed portion of the podcast. Now, over the last several months, it's been nothing but coffee as far as the beverage is concerned, and that's what it is today. It's Dunkin' Donuts coffee, the original blend, K-Cups. I've talked about it countless times before. There's really no need to get into it any deeper. It is what it is. It's good, solid coffee, commercially available. You can buy it pretty much anywhere. So that's why I drink it. It's some of the better grocery store stuff that I've had. A little update on the Second Amendment coffee. I don't have it anymore. I gave it away. I was having so much trouble getting it to work in my Keurig machine that it just wasn't worth the trouble. I was getting this fountain effect through my K-Cup little adapter for my machine, and in addition to that, I just couldn't get enough coffee into the little canister to make the cup of coffee worthwhile. It always tastes a little watered down, and I'm really not about to dust off my traditional drip coffee maker just to make the occasional cup of coffee. The Keurig is just fantastic, and the Second Amendment coffee just wasn't working in it. So I gave it to a friend of mine. Coincidentally, it is the same friend that got me into both cigars and firearms. He didn't get into either one as deeply as I did, but I've got him doing some work up at my house. He's a contractor. He's fixing my porch, and one day while he was up here, I saw the bag of pre-ground coffee, which was like over 3/4 full, and I just handed it to him. Enjoy. So I'll talk to him again later this week. I'll see what he thought of it, and I'll report back any findings. The cigar is something that I think I've done in the past. I'm starting to lose track of what cigars I've talked about, but this is the Inch by E.P. Carrillo, and the Inch is sort of the theme here. Cigars are sized by ring gauge, the diameter, and they are measured in 64ths of an inch. So a common size, which is a Robusto, is a 50 ring gauge cigar. It's 50 64ths. A Toro is another common size. A lot of times you'll see them 52 by 6. They're 52 64ths in diameter, 6 inches long, and so on and so forth, different sizes. The Inch is a line that has 3 sizes, I believe, and they all start, the sizes start at 60. They go, I think it's 60, 62, and 64. Or it may be 60, 64, 66. I don't remember. Whatever the case is, they're all massive. I'm not a big fan of 60 ring gauge cigars because of how large they are. Because of the large size, there's a lot more filler, and there's a lot more filler in the ratio of wrapper to filler. I personally enjoy the wrapper flavor the most, so when you start getting off balance and get a lot more filler, I think it waters down the flavor of the cigar. Doesn't make a bad cigar, it just makes one that has less wrapper flavor, and which is coincidentally less of my favorite flavor. So, cigars tend to be a little watered down for my palate, and they take a tremendously long time to smoke. I lit this one up knowing that I wasn't going to finish it before I had to pack up and head upstairs, but I enjoy them anyway. This particular cigar is a good solid cigar. Even though it tastes a little watered down, I still think it delivers big, bold flavor. It's got they come in two formats, the natural and the Maduro. This is a natural, and I think it's got a nice woody flavor. There's a really, really mild spicy component to it. It's got a nice creamy finish. It's not hard on the palate. I'm smoking it a little after 6 a.m. and it's been really easy going. So it's something that I can enjoy early on in the day, and it's got enough flavor to stand up in the evening as well. I think it pairs really nicely with coffee, and it's a good solid morning cigar if you've got the time. Cigars are made by E.P. Carrillo, Ernesto Perez Carrillo. His fame came from the La Gloria Cubana line, which is now a big product of General Cigar. Ernesto worked with General for a long time, but he's branched off and started doing his own thing with E.P. Carrillo, and he makes some really fantastic cigars. I'm not quite sure what the price point is on these. I think they're around $7 or $8, maybe a little bit more. But if you're interested in trying the E.P. Carrillo Inch, you can head over to AskTheCigarGuys.com, look up pricing, and then reach out to my preferred retailer, which is Mike over at Buckhead Cigars. Put your order in, and he'll be happy to deliver them for you. Generally, he sells cigars in 5-packs and by the box. If you look up pricing on Ask the Cigar Guys, all of the pricing there will include shipping, so what you see is what you pay to your door. And I just love that business model. I love going somewhere and seeing a price and not having to figure out what shipping is going to cost on top of it. So Mike does a lot of his business over the phone, so you can call him at 404-844-0400. He's also on Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus as Buckhead Cigar, if you just kind of want to get a feel for him before you put your order in. Or you can contact him, put your order in, and then pick up the phone and call him to pay him before he ships your product. And you'll have it in just a couple of days. He ships priority mail, I believe, so 3 days generally. Typically from Georgia to Pennsylvania, I'll have my product in 2 days. And, just all in all, really great retailer, good cigars. Why wait? Pick up the phone, call up Mike, tell him Walt sent you, and order yourself some cigars. The discussion portion of the podcast this week revolves around my beloved Smith & Wesson M&P. So, I think it was last week, I came home from a USPSA match, I think. I don't remember exactly how it went down, but I was going into my safe to put something away or get something. I really don't remember what. And when I opened the safe door, I looked inside and I saw my Smith & Wesson M&P. 9mm polymer frame M&P. I mean, go anywhere online, you can see them. And so I see this gun sitting there, and I thought, I really don't shoot this gun enough. I love it. I've shot it in one USPSA season. It's comfortable. It shoots really well. I really should shoot it more often. So I pick it up out of the safe, and I just start handling it a little bit, and I turn it over, and I look at the takedown lever, and just disappointment and grief and just all kinds of unpleasantness seep into my mind when I see that the takedown lever is covered in surface rust. The black lever is probably 95% brown from rust. I'm really disappointed in that, and I think, if why is the takedown lever rusting so much? What is the deal here? It's been sitting in the safe next to my Glock 19, next to my Glock 17, next to my wife's Beretta Neos 22, even next to an old Rossi 38 Special. And yet, this is the only gun that's rusting. What's going on? So I start looking at it a little bit closer. And I've got surface rust all over my rear sight as well. And I've got a little bit of rust speckling the serrations as well. It's I'm getting aggravated. The more I look at the gun, the more frustrated I'm getting with how rusted this thing is getting. If this were the first time it rusted, I could be less upset. Maybe the finish isn't as durable as even a Rossi 38 Special, but I'm getting really aggravated over this whole thing. Maybe a year and a half ago, I had rust issues with the slide of the gun. Down towards the muzzle end where it says M&P and where the Smith & Wesson stamp is, I was getting a lot of surface rust. It was pretty bad. So I picked up the phone, I called Smith & Wesson, and I talked to, I believe his name was Joe, about all the rust on my gun. And he explained to me that it was an issue with the earlier models of the M&P. There was a batch of slides that didn't get coated properly. I don't know whether they weren't baked long enough or just the coating was bad. But whatever the case was, they were doing a replacement on all of the rusted parts, and apparently my gun fell into that category of earlier models that were prone to rust. So I packed my gun up and I sent it to Smith & Wesson. I think it was 4 weeks later they sent the gun back, and it looked pristine. They had replaced the slide for me, so it was no longer rusted. They didn't bother refinishing it. They just up and replaced the slide altogether, and it looked like a brand new gun. I also had a pin that was working out that they put back in for me. I could have easily done it, but since I was sending the gun back anyway, I just let them handle it. And all in all, I was happy with the gun. I shot it a little bit. I took it out occasionally, and when I got my Glock 17, the M&P has sort of fallen by the wayside. Before I packed it away, I don't want to say for good, I cleaned it up really well, oiled it, did the usual, and put it in the safe for an extended period of time. It sat in there for a couple of months before I really handled it, and after picking it up, I'm seeing all this rust. I'm getting really disappointed. I'm getting aggravated, and it's time to call Smith & Wesson again, because I don't want to deal with this rust. I don't want the rust on the gun. I want it fixed. So I haven't called yet. I will be doing that shortly, maybe today, maybe later on this week, and we'll probably be sending my gun back to Smith & Wesson a second time within 2 years over rust. And the aggravating part is that it's the only gun in the safe that's stored the same place, same conditions as all my other guns. Not only that, this gun gets less use than anything else. It gets put away clean. The Glocks, I'll shoot them, they'll get dirty, they'll have fingerprints all over them. I'll put them in the safe because I know I'll be shooting them again next weekend, and yet no rust. I don't understand what the problem is here. It's frustrating, but Smith & Wesson has always taken care of me in the past. They've been good to me. I feel like a valued customer, so I don't want to totally turn my back on the brand. My Smith & Wesson Bodyguard has been beautiful. It's worked flawlessly. No signs of corrosion or rust anywhere on it. So I don't know whether it's just this particular gun being an early model and not all the parts being replaced or coated or whatever they're doing, but I'm kind of bummed out. But the gun is most likely going to go back again. So it's really not a whole lot to elaborate on. I just wanted to express my annoyance with this particular gun. So that's going to close out the discussion portion of the podcast, which has turned into sort of like a rant session. But hey, my podcast, I'm allowed to do that sort of thing. A couple of episodes back, I changed the format of the podcast slightly. I shortened the news segment, I shortened the featured content segment, and I injected a feature that I'm calling Ask the Audience. And basically, the idea here is to throw a discussion topic out there, whether it be a simple question or a little bit more involved with a story that goes behind it, and then sit back and listen to your feedback, listen to your opinions on the matter, and then gather all that stuff up and then feature one or two of your responses to close out the discussion. I don't want to offer any opinion. Basically, I throw something out there, you respond, I tack it on the podcast, and then we move on. So Last episode, I asked a question about what you require from a buyer when selling a lawn gun. And for argument's sake, we're going to say that your state permits the sale of long guns without any restrictions. And basically, I wanted to know, what do you require of the buyer? Are you asking for just cash in a handshake? Are you requiring copies of driver's license or a concealed carry permit or a license to carry firearms? Are you going full-blown through an FFL with complete background check and things like that? And I just kind of left it out there for you to respond. I got a couple of responses that were really good, and one of which came from Tom over at Fill Your Hands, the Fill Your Hands blog. Tom sent in a speaker pipe voice message that I'm going to play for you now.
Hi Walt, this is Tom from the Fill Your Hands blog. On your last podcast, in your segment called Ask the Audience, you talked about the private sale of a shotgun. So I wanted to give you some answers. Now, I'm getting over a cold, so I apologize if I clear my throat occasionally. But you asked, what do you ask of the buyer? Cash and a handshake? Do you want to see the driver's license or carry license? Do you require the buyer to fill out a bill of sale? Do you insist on transfer through an FFL? And why are you asking these things of the buyer? Well, as it turns out, I wrote a blog post a couple of weeks ago on the same topic, pretty much, called Congrats, You Bought a Gun. Of course, it was from the viewpoint of buying a gun, but I'll send you the link. First, I always do a bill of sale whether I'm selling a gun or buying. When buying, I want proof of when and where I bought the gun for insurance purposes, if nothing else. And when selling, I want proof that I don't own the gun anymore, for a lot of reasons. For one thing, if 10 years later the gun turns up being used in a crime, I want to be able to prove it wasn't my gun when the crime happened. Do I want to see the driver's license or the permit? Yeah, in fact, I want a photocopy of both of them. Why? Well, under the law, while private sales don't require a background check, I still don't want the guns in the hands of people who shouldn't own them. In fact, I add a line to the end of my bill of sale that says, I warrant that I am not legally prohibited from buying or owning firearms in the state of Georgia. Now, as for using an FFL, I wouldn't do it. For one thing, I don't want the government involved. It's none of their business whether I'm buying or selling guns. Yes, I know that by law they don't retain the records of NICS searches, but you never know when that could change. Now, why am I asking these things of the buyer? Well, because the penalties for selling guns to prohibited persons is extremely stiff. And besides, as I said, I like to keep my guns away from people who shouldn't own them. That's why I'm careful about how I advertise the guns for sale in the first place. First, I don't use newspaper ads, and I don't sell my guns at gun shows. In fact, I prefer to use gun forums, advertise them there. And I want to be contacted through the forum. That way, I get a chance to check out the person who's asking. I read their posts. If they're fishy, I can decline. In fact, when I contact the buyer, I then want to get their name and address up front, so I can at least do a Google search. And if things are not quite sure there, you can even spend money on a background check through the internet if things don't look good. When it comes down to it, there's a lot at stake when you sell your guns to someone who shouldn't own one. Private gun sales are something many people are trying to do away with altogether. They call it the gun show loophole. Well, I'd just as soon not give anyone any ammunition for that cause. Thanks a bunch, and as always, I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
The Ask the Audience question, or the discussion topic this time around, is really simple. Every time someone buys a new gun and then posts about it on the internet, or purchases a new gun and starts talking about it amongst friends, there's usually a topic that pops up, and that is reliability. So for instance, let's say you go out and you buy a brand new shiny gun, and you're planning on doing one or two things with it. Either you've purchased it for concealed carry or open carry, whichever you choose, or you've purchased it for competitive shooting use. In either situation, how many rounds do you need to put through that gun over and above the manufacturer recommended break-in period, if that particular gun has one, before you deem it either safe for carry use, or reliable for carry use, or reliable enough for competitive use. So basically, in a nutshell, you go out and you buy a gun. The manual doesn't say that there's any required break-in period. So, how many rounds do you put through that gun before you're comfortable carrying it or shooting it in competition? Really simple. There really is no wrong answer. It's purely opinion, and I'd love to know what you think. You can respond in a variety of ways. You can either comment on any place that you find this video, which will either be the Gun Rights Radio Network forum, YouTube, my blog, waltnpa.com, or if you really want to get creative and do the same thing that Tom did just recently, you can head over to waltnpa.com. On the show notes for this page, there's going to be a link under the Ask the Audience segment. Click on that link. It will take you to a service called SpeakerPipe. It's going to open up a web page with a big record button in the middle. You press the record button, it's going to turn on the microphone on your computer, and you start talking. You make your response, you click send, and it fires off that audio form to me, or that audio file to me, and I may include that in next week's podcast. So, really simple, fun ways to interact. This is all, this segment is purely for fun and discussion and interaction. So, have at it. Respond. Tell me what you think. Well, it's about time to wrap up the podcast, but before I do, I want to thank you for checking out episode 54 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of waltnpa.com. I really appreciate the continued support, all the comments that I get, the emails, things like that. It really goes a long way. I really appreciate it, and, it keeps me motivated to continue with the podcast. So the more good stuff I hear, the more amped up I am to do the following episode. So if you want to keep seeing these pop up, you just keep on sending me kind words. And if you would like to reach out and get in touch with me for any particular reason, you can do so. The easiest way is to head over to waltnpa.com and click on the contact button. There'll be a list of things that pop up. Included is an email form. You can just fill out the box and click submit. Will fire off an email to me. I'm also on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. All of that information is on that particular page, so it's kind of like a one-stop shop for getting in touch with me. I'm also on the Gun Rights Radio Network forum. I have a Shooting the Breeze subsection where I will post a new topic for each episode that comes out. Please feel free to use that section to comment on the show, make suggestions, constructive criticism, that sort of thing. And I seem to be getting a little bit more feedback on YouTube, which is awesome. And I'm doing my best to keep up with it and comment more and more, respond to questions and feedback and things like that. So if you're more of a YouTube user, please feel free to use the service, and I will do my best to respond to your comment. So again, thanks for checking out the podcast. I really appreciate the support. Until next week, stay safe, happy shooting, and I will catch you next time. Oh, before I get out of here, just another reminder for the two contests. If you'd like to win a free copy of Shoot Your Guide to Shooting in Competition, autographed by Julie Golub, head over to waltnpa.com, click on the shoot image, and the details will pop up. Help me save a little bit of money so I don't have to buy a box of 50 BMG, and go to facebook.com/waltnpa. Give me a like. The faster I reach 250 likes, the faster I can get this burden off my back about being afraid to find out just how much a box of 50 BMG costs. And along the way, a random user will be selected, or a random Facebook liker will be selected for a free license to my gun database when I hit 250 likes. So speed that contest along and ease my spirits, because I really don't want to find out what a box of 50 BMG costs.
You can hear Gun Rights Radio Network on Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, or Palm phones, on demand and on the go. Don't have Stitcher? Download it for free today at Stitcher.com or in the app stores. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. Gun Rights Radio Network shows can be found under Sources.